Welcome back to another My Hero Academia final season breakdown, this time going over episode 6 titled Wrench It Open, Izuku Midoriya. Of course, we are going to be breaking down the episode as well as the entire season, going over all of the hidden Easter eggs and references, so be sure to Detroit smash that like button and subscribe to the Kidoki channel so that you won't miss any My Hero Academia final season breakdowns. Now, the episode begins with Deku in his overlay form, using Black Whip all throughout his body, forcing his beaten up body to keep moving, and is amazed at how Deku is able to use Black Whip in that way, and Kudo tells them that Deku's respect and admiration for quirks on the whole makes One For All shine even brighter. Deku knows that in order to transfer One For All, the person you want to receive it has to take in some of the user's DNA, remembering All Might's words that One For All can also be given to an unwilling recipient by force. Kudo notes that it was him and Bruce that came up with the theory on how One For All could be transferred back when they were still alive. This means that Yoichi's want to be with Kudo and the others instead of All For One on the day he died is how One For All transferred to Kudo when his blood splattered all over him. So Deku's blood will serve as the transfer agent when it enters an open wound on Shigaraki, which is exactly how we saw One For All get transferred to Bakugo during the Heroes Rising movie. But due to his regen, Shigaraki's wounds won't stay open for long, so the only opening they have is the moment of impact. Now, a spherical mass that has an opening unknown to the villains that the hero has to exploit for victory sounds a little too familiar, and that's because Kudo's plan to transfer One For All to destroy the mass within Shigaraki is straight up the Death Star trench run from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Horikoshi loves his Star Wars references, so just like how Luke in A New Hope used his connection to the Force to pull off the shot blowing up the Death Star, Deku has to bet it all on his connection to the Vestiges and One For All, My Hero Academia's version of the Force, believing that transferring One For All is going to break through to Shigaraki. Shigaraki stares at Deku and notes how during Deku's last attack, something felt off, so he ended up cutting off his own arm before Deku had the chance to do so. And looking at Deku, he knows he's planning to do something big. He sees that Deku is physically suffering in the state that he's in, and normally a person would focus on clinging to life instead of fighting, but Deku isn't a normal person, which is why Deku is given the opposite title of Shigaraki, as Shigaraki is known as history's greatest villain, while Deku is known as history's maddest hero. Shigaraki and Deku dive towards the earth as Shigaraki states, "This is where I kill you," and Deku states, "This is where I transfer One For All." Deku uses Smokescreen, confusing N because he believed that his quirk was the most useless in a fight. Shigaraki's plan relies on hitting the ground with a little bit of decay in order to put Deku on the defense, but the ground Shigaraki ends up decaying was already ripped out from the earth by Deku using Black Chain, keeping Shigaraki's decay from spreading, reminding Shigaraki of what the heroes had done to him back at UA. Turns out Deku had previously shot Black Chain underground when he was sent flying by Shigaraki last episode, and carved up a portion of the ground preparing for Shigaraki's next attack. Danger Sense goes off, alerting Shigaraki, and he sees with his search quirk that Deku is behind him. He turns to grab Deku, but only decays Deku's cape, as Deku had used the same decoy strat he used on Lady Nagant on Shigaraki. Shigaraki is extra confused because his search quirk showed a light pointing towards the cape, and we see that the Black Whip tendril carrying the cape was also carrying some of Deku's blood, and that's what his search quirk zeroed in on. Shigaraki finally sees through the distraction and turns to Deku, but it's too late as Deku is right in front of him as his blood with Kudo in it returns to his fist. Deku reveals that they gambled on the possibility that Search would register the other successors and their quirk factors alongside One For All and Deku. His intention to transfer Kudo allowed Kudo to split off and reside in his blood. By launching his blood straight at Shigaraki with Kudo in it, it took Deku off of Shigaraki's radar, creating an opening to get up close to Shigaraki. Deku exploited the fact that Shigaraki can track him, plus using Smokescreen made Shigaraki misjudge his position position for a sneak attack. Hearing this moves En to tears, as Deku had made great use of his quirk. Shigaraki's body, fearing what Deku is about to do, tries to adapt in order to reject what is going to happen, as he knows that he can't afford to take this hit from Deku. Deku is grazed by Shigaraki's hand, but lands a powerful blow to Shigaraki's chest, transferring Kudo into him. Kudo tells Deku to not worry about him, as he was only ever a ghost anyways. Kudo states that his mind and will have passed to Shigaraki, but before Shigaraki can make use of his power, he will smash his core. Kudo shatters, hitting Shigaraki's core, doing immense damage to him. This causes memories from Shigaraki to bleed out, as Deku sees Dabi and Toga from way back during the aftermath of the Stain arc, when they were first introduced as new recruits joining the League of Villains. Deku's memories also bleed out as we see Shoto during the sports festival using his fire side for the first time. Spinner also appears on the sports festival stage, saying he is only here because Stain inspired him to take action, which was said during the My Villain Academia arc to Shigaraki. Deku is rightfully confused, but Yoichi says that their memories are blending together, and En tells Deku to not let up as Kudo was able to pull off the attack, but it wasn't enough, so he needs to keep going. Deku rushes Shigaraki as their memories of the USJ attack play out around them. Now, Shigaraki and Deku's memories blending together is almost synonymous to what happens near the ending of Final Fantasy IX, a game that happens to be one of Horikoshi's all-time favorites. In the game, you and your party enter a place called Memoria, a place made up of you and your party's memories, which allows you to witness each other's past memories very vividly as if you were actually there. This right here is exactly what we see happening with Deku and Shigaraki due to One For All and All For One's shared connection. Yoichi realizes that the resonance between All For One and One For All was already building up at a rapid pace, since when Deku had first exchanged blows with Shigaraki, All For One was able to see the vestiges of One For All. Now, after Kudo had been transferred, that resonance has reached a critical point. They now face the world's mightiest villain with armor forged from untold malice and hatred, and putting a stop to such heinous calamity was always the reason for One For All's creation. Yoichi runs into action along with the rest of the One For All users, similar to how Deku once did when his legs moved on their own to save Bakugo, as Deku puts all of the One For All users in his fist and hits Shigaraki with a powerful blow, sending them all to Shigaraki's core. As they all head towards the mass, Shigaraki's realm puts up some defensive barriers, rejecting the majority of the transfer and bouncing them back to Deku, with only En being the only vestige to slip through, hitting Shigaraki's core. Banjo appears to Deku, explaining that since Shigaraki's will was strong enough to steal a portion of One For All, then it only makes sense that his will is also capable of rejecting the forceful transfer of One For All. Deku realizes that the growing hands and fingers around Shigaraki aren't capable of receiving the transfer, as his attack just now only went through the moment he broke past the fingers and struck directly at Shigaraki's chest. Deku sees another one of Shigaraki's memories, as he is seen as a child walking with a man in a suit. This is actually a really important scene, because this was actually a scene that wasn't adapted in the anime during Shigaraki's origin story in the My Villain Academia arc, where right in the beginning of his backstory, he is dropped off at home by a man in a suit because he was causing trouble playing hero, which of course led to a bunch of problems at home. Deku sees that the transfer is affecting Shigaraki, so he will keep going as many times as it takes to break through to him. Shigaraki's hands and fingers grow all over him, building up a protective shield as Deku faces the villain head on. Meanwhile, a camera with wings flies nearby, recording Deku's fight. This winged camera, of course, being a reference to the Quidditch Golden Snitch seen in Harry Potter. We see UA had a somewhat rough crash landing, and the heroes are now evacuating UA, and at the evacuation center, we see Eri running away from ectoplasm. Deku is shown on the screen fighting Shigaraki, and the swarm of hands coming at him. Eri, seeing the danger Deku is in, wants to help the hero who once saved her. Ectoplasm explains to her that there would be no way for her to make it to him, plus her rewind energy isn't fully replenished. We see that after the Paranormal Liberation War, Eri wanted to rewind Aizawa, but couldn't because her rewind wasn't replenished after having rewinded Mirio. She sees Deku fighting on the screen and remembers how her dream made him want to try extra hard, and she knows Deku is fighting for her and everyone else's dreams, and she begins to cry. Koda, in tears, comforts Eri, telling her that Deku reminds him of himself because he is somewhat of a crybaby, and when he sees Deku fighting hard, it makes him feel he has to take action too. The man in the All Might t-shirt is moved by Deku's actions fighting to bring back everyone's normal lives. Also, the person standing next to him is a dog/wolf person wearing a t-shirt that says cat on it. At UA, Momo is helping Kaminari walk while they watch Deku fight on her phone, and seeing Deku in his overlay form reminds them of his Dark Deku outfit. Kaminari brings up how in comics, the side characters, kind of like him in Kirishima, would stay on the sidelines yelling how they believe in and have faith in their friend. Momo doesn't really understand what he's trying to say because she doesn't read comics, but Kaminari further explains that Deku is the strongest guy in the world right now, but he doesn't feel like everything is going to be okay, like how All Might used to inspire everyone to back when he was still a hero. Kaminari isn't sure if him feeling anxious and worried means he doesn't have faith in Deku, making him feel like a bad friend. Kaminari here going through a ton of trauma. The NHA news reporter sends the chopper away with Ochako strapped in, escorting her to a nearby hospital, and the other news crew lands their chopper to help Hawks and the others, as it's heard that Ochako might not live. Hawks hears this and remembers Ochako's speech at UA. Deku is seen fighting on a screen again, this time with Lady Nagant and Rocklock watching. The two discuss Deku's way of opening someone's heart and how that's the hardest thing for a villain to bear, as Deku isn't out to punish evil in a black and white sense like how All Might carried out justice back then. Deku is on a more nuanced path, with Nagant noting that the look on Deku's face as he's up against the wall fighting for his dream makes them want to risk it all to back him up. As the crowd watches Deku fight, someone in the crowd says, "You can do it." Shigaraki, terrified, screams for Deku to get away from him, similar to how his father reacted to him when he came after him. Deku lands a powerful smash, but is instantly taken to the front of Shigaraki's childhood home. Deku is then placed in his UA uniform as he recalls Shigaraki stating that the destruction of everything stems from that house. Shigaraki and Deku are engulfed in light as we see the mass within Shigaraki get destroyed, just like how the Death Star blew up in A New Hope. Nana Shimura falls to the ground and looks around to see that everyone had been transferred except for her, and she blames her own weakness for having abandoned her family, as that's the reason why she was rejected. Deku stands in front of the Tomura household, and Shigaraki appears in front of him, taking the shape of an evil Deku. This being a reference to the fact that Shigaraki is literally a dark parallel of Deku in the story. He asks what will learning about his past change, and Deku realizes that through Shigaraki's eyes, this is how he looks to him, and he took this form to talk to him. Deku answers that he doesn't know, but letting this end without finding out isn't going to sit right with him. Shigaraki tells him to die, as Deku states that he will let him in. Deku almost gets isekai'd by Truck-kun, and he realizes that his backpack got damaged from the truck. Nana Shimura explains that since he delved deep into Shigaraki's subconscious, Deku and his thoughts take solid forms, meaning that they can both affect each other physically, so damage taken within this realm will damage them in real life. Despite being the only vestige left, Deku is glad that she is still there with him. Nana states that this house is where Shigaraki will be, and here he will be able to reach out and strike Shigaraki directly at his origin. Deku rushes to the door, but is stopped once more by Shigaraki, this time taking the form of Stan Stain, Redestro, and Overhaul. Overhaul asks if Deku has a plan, and Deku tells him that he doesn't and to get out of his way, continuing to make his way to the door. Once opened, the door turns into a picture of Nana Shimura and Kotaro, turning it into a memory of Hana showing Tenko their grandma. This breaks Nana Shimura's heart as she sees that Kotaro had kept the picture. Things get even more heartbreaking as when they get through, both Deku and Nana witness Kotaro smacking Tenko across the face, a scene that utterly shocks both Deku and Nana. Now, this episode adapted about 3.5 chapters, them being chapters 414, 415, 416, and half of 417. This episode was an absolute banger from beginning to end. Let me know your thoughts on the 6th episode of My Hero Academia's final season. Let me know everything in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to Detroit smash that like button, and if you are new to the Kidoroki channel, then be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia final season breakdowns. With that said, I'll see you all in the next one.